Hello everyone. We'll just wait for everyone to join, then we can begin.
Hello.
Hi Rohi. Hello. Maybe we can give it a start if others are joining and they can pour in. So let me just share my screen. If you can just quickly let me know if you are able to see my screen, Rohi.
Yes.
Okay. So basically, what we are going to do is that we are going to start with, let's say, classification. Before we do that, we are just going to quickly revise what is regression and what was, let's say, classification, because they fall into supervised learning problems. And then we can go with some of the classification algorithms now, and then we will continue doing them as long as we have them. But there are, let's say, many classification algorithms. Just wanted to make you aware of this. We may not really have the bandwidth to cover every one of them, right? So we will cover only the ones which are of prime importance, which are really or let's say very generally used across, and then accordingly we can take it from there, right? I mean, the rest will be something that I will mention to you so that you can research as well, right? And if in case, of course, we already have a study group, right? So if in case you see there are any problems understanding any algorithm, uh, then we can have a chat, or maybe we can join on the weekend and we can try to understand how it is going. So uh, basically what we are going to study mainly will be those kind of algorithms where we really or the ones which we are really going to use in the industry the most. Okay, so that's the most useful, or let's say you can say the most used. Okay, the most used things which are there in the industry that we are going to look at. Okay, now how we are going to start the discussion is that you just have to give me 1 minute. I think there is some message which is coming up, so let me just quickly look into this, and then we can give it a start. In the meanwhile, maybe if you uh, have any questions, anything you would like to ask until what we have already done.
No doubts as of now.
No doubts, right? Okay, okay, good. Uh, Give me 1 minute, Rohi. I'll just go on mute and I'll be back within 2 minutes. Okay, then let's give it a start. So I just wanted to quickly go through what is a classification use case. So classification use case comes under supervised learning problems. Okay, supervised learning problems. This is where. So I'm just going to give the explanations here. So this is where I already have a labeled data. So I already know, or I can say in other words, I already know what has happened in the past, right? So for example, let's say, okay, let's say just an example given. I have a historical data set, okay, of rain in Mumbai, okay, for last 5 years, right? So this data, let's say this data contains features of the weather and the target variable, okay, which is equal to rain or no rain, right? So this is also known as a supervised learning problem, which we already know, or a supervised learning use case, you can say. So we have already seen a regression, which is a supervised learning use case. It is basically a statistical use case itself, but more often than not, it is used uh, in the machine learning area. So that's what we have looked into. Now, the most common, okay, case or problems, okay, in case of supervised learning is known as classification. Okay, what is classification? The outcome or goal, okay, of the exercise is to predict. Now we are going to do prediction. So it is to predict, okay, the outcome, okay, where where the outcome is a categorical variable. Okay, it can be nominal, it can be ordinal, it can have many categories. You can think of n number of, let's say, categories, but the variable that you're trying to predict is actually a categorical variable. Okay, it is not a linear variable or it is not a continuous variable. It's a categorical variable, right? Example, same example, the one that I have deliberately taken earlier. If I have the data of rain in Mumbai for the last 5 years, can I use that data, which has a lot of features about the weather, for the days when it rained as opposed to for the days when it did not rain? And can I use that to find a pattern and create a model, right? Can I create a model? Okay, let's be very honest. Can I create a model where I can try to find out whether there is going to be rain or no rain? So in this use case, in this example, I have two outcomes. So, or in other words, my output variable or my target is a categorical feature or a categorical column. I'm sorry, not a feature, it's target. So it's a categorical column of two values. It can either be yes or no. It cannot be maybe in my case, or it may be. So I may have a use case where I just want to find out, it's at the predictability, or in other words, the probability of raining, whether it is going to rain or it is not going to rain, or maybe it might rain, right? So what is the kind of probabilistic reference over here that I'm trying to conclude at? So that can also be a use case, that can also be a problem of supervised learning, which is known as a classification learning problem, because my outcome, okay, is to classify something. So my outcome can either be here or there. Okay, my outcome can either be yes or no. My outcome can either be, let's say I have the data, right, of our batch, or the group which we have, and all the students, all the participants data I have, right? So let's say I have data for Sarangs, I have data for Rohi, I have data for Mugdha, and all of our friends who are there in our group. And I have this data for the number of classes that we are doing. Let's say this is 102nd sessions, right? So they've already done 102 sessions. For each and every day, if I would have recorded things like who joined, who did not join, when did that person join, how many questions he or she asked, and so on and so forth, right? So if I have this kind of a data set, then finally I may want to predict, if at all I have good amount of, let's say, data, I may want to predict, right, if looking at a question, I can try to predict, okay, if this is the question, or this is the language in which the question is asked, or this is the subject for which the question is asked, then definitely this is a question from Isha. Or if it's a question on XYZ subject, then definitely it's a question from Rohi, or it is a question from Sarang. So in this case, as you can see, in our group, we have how many members? Let me quickly check our group. We have 12 members, including me. So excluding me, there are 11 others, right? So this is also a classification problem, because in this target variable, which is in this case the name of the student that we're trying to predict, we have 11 different values it can take, right? So as you can understand, classification is not only limited to yes no use cases. It is not really limited to yes no use cases. It may be yes no, it may well be 1 2 3 4 5 6, right? Or it might be Rohi, Sarang, X, Y, Z, A, B, and C, right? So there can be multitude of cases. Okay, multitude of cases for which classification applies. Now, a very simple question. A very simple question is, if we already know about a regression, right? If we already know about a regression and we are already able to fit a line, or we already know how to fit a best fit line to create a model, then why do we need yet another way, or yet another, it's a method to do the prediction? Why cannot I live with simple estimations, right? If it is possible to draw an estimation line using linear regression, then why cannot I survive with it? Let me draw something. So that's why I just created this blank space. So let's say I have a data, okay, a data of this Mumbai range, okay, and if I plot that data, okay, then on x-axis, okay, I'm going to have, let's say, the date, okay, or the day, the date and time, okay. On the y-axis, I'm having, let's say, I'm having the actual output which has happened on that day. Or maybe that's not a good example, because then we will get confused thinking like this is a time series or something. So let's say we have x-axis is, let's say, the humidity in the air. Okay, x-axis is the humidity in the air in Mumbai, and y-axis is whether it has rained or not. Right. So I have some days where let me just change the color. Okay, let me just change the color, and I have some days, sorry, I have some days when it has not rained, right? I have some days when it has not rained. So let that be represented by these orange circles. And there are some days when it has rained. So let's say days, they will be represented by the red circles, right? So for some values of humidity, I have got rains. For some values of humidity, I have not got rains. Now the question is, can I not do this problem solving using linear regression? The answer is, we may want to give it a try, but our model will never be accurate. Why is so? Because if I do a best fit line, so let's say I'm trying to fit a best fit line over here. Let's say a linear regression model has fit a line like this, right? So in this line, why am I at all trying to do a linear regression in this case? Because theoretically, I can just measure the distances, right? I can simply measure the distances from these points, which I can draw as perpendicular lines on my best fit line, which I think is the best fit line. And then I can try to find out what is the sum of squared errors, right? From there, I can find out what is the R square value. And from there, I can find out how good or how bad my model is. Simple, right? This is what we have done. We have created 10 models until yesterday on that Boston housing price data set, just to find out that we had one model which was performing good, right? So we created 10 different models in 10 different ways. We used linear regression. We used, let's say, lasso. We used ridge. We did scaling. We did this. We did that, right? After which we came to this thing, right? After which we came to this thing that we selected one best model which has the best R square score. Now, can I not do this in this case? If you just forget about the use case that we are trying to solve, can we not do this? The answer is yes, we can fit this line. But then the problem here is, The best fit line, right? The best fit line will go beyond the boundary values as well. So what I mean by that is my boundary values in my use case, in this case, my use case is where my boundary values, okay, my boundary values are going to be something like this. I'll just take a different color pen and I'm just going to draw it. Maybe this was very light, so we could not see it. Let me just increase the line size. So I have one boundary value which is it rained. So the value, let's say it is the value is equal to 1. And I have one more boundary value which is equal to 0. Right? The problem here is my line, just a moment. Yeah. So in this case, my boundary conditions are, let's say, I have this value which is 0, it did not rain, and then I have this value which is 1. So my linear regression line, the best fit line that I have plotted, right, it goes below the value as well. So there is one part of the line that goes below the value. There is one part of the line which goes above the value. So what this proves, or what this essentially or intuitively means, is that my best fit line, which I'm claiming to be this one, right, this best fit line is actually above and beyond, okay, above, which is this part, and beyond, which is this part, my agreed set of values or the range of values. Now how can a model be beyond the set of values? If you have a model which is beyond the set of values, then there is some problem, right? So for example, if you just try to understand, if I'm asking a question, right, about it, either it is going to rain or not, and one of the students in our group or one of the members in our group is answering or is saying that maybe tomorrow KKR is going to win in the match in IPL. Now that answer is not relevant in that context because it is out of scope. My scope is only limited to these two values, whether it is going to rain or whether it is not going to rain. Now, how do I fix that? How do I fix that? Let me just remove these green lines and try to see if I can fix that. If I would like to fix that, one quick way will be, let's make this line a straight line over here. So I am just taking this line. I'm just taking this line. Okay, I'm just taking this line over here. Okay, and give me 1 minute. And I'm just moving this line. Okay, so this line I have already taken up, and I'm taking a blue line which fits here. So I am just taking this part of the line and I am putting it over here, making it actually parallel to my lower bound. And then I'm also doing the same with this top line. With this top section that starts from here and ends over here, I'll just take this and I will put it down. And I will actually normalize this, or actually keep a boundary, or I will give it a boundary value that you cannot go beyond this value, right? So essentially what is happening is, or at the end of the day, what I get is that I get a y-axis and I get an x-axis. I know I have a lower bound and I know I have a higher bound. And then I get a model which has a line which is up to certain point in time like this. Then the line goes like this, and then the line goes like this, right? This is one of the ways in which I can fit the same line. I have not taken any other line. Let me be very clear. This is the same line that I have taken, the same line. I've just adjusted it in the corners. I have cropped it across the corners. I have slanted it or adjusted it across the corners so that I can put it within the leaps and bounds of my agreed values, right? This line that you see over here, if I try to bring it into mathematical terms, okay, if I try to bring this into a mathematical term, this can be represented using a mathematical function, right? This can be represented using a mathematical function, and that mathematical function or that unit of representation is also known as a logit. It's called a logit. It is also known as a sigmoid function. So in maths, a sigmoid function represents a curve which is something like this. Now, ideal condition, sigmoid is not exactly like that. Sigmoid is actually something like this. I'll take another color and I'll do a curve line. A sigmoid represents something like this. If you remember, in some of the distributions, we have seen a structure which is something like this. This function, the function that represents a line, or it produces a line which is similar to this line that I've drawn over here, is called a sigmoid function. And the resulting object which we are getting because of this function is known as a logit. And that's from where we give a name to this adjustment of linear regression that we have done. And that adjustment is otherwise known as logistic regression. So basically, I have not taken away the name regression. Why? Because I have taken the regression based fit line only. I took the regression based fit line and then I have tried to modify it. I have tried to adjust it. Right? So that's why the name regression still stays there. But the only thing that I have changed is that now I'm no longer considered or bothered about having a linear best fit line or a best fit plane which fits through my data points. Now I'm interested into a line or a function or a curve or the model in that shape, which is actually giving me a logit, or the outcome of that expression is a logit, or it is called a logit. And that is the reason why I've just taken this name and I have created a new word known as logistic here. So that's from where the name logistic regression comes into. Few things to keep in mind, even if the word says regression, okay, even if the term says regression, it has nothing to do with regression. Using logistic regression, we cannot solve regression use cases, right? We cannot solve any regression use cases. It is specifically for the classification use cases. Okay, it's specifically for the classification use cases where my outcome or my target is actually a categorical variable. Okay, it is actually a categorical variable. So that's the use of logistic regression. Now, what are the industry use cases? Okay, let's just try to look into where this can be used, right? Or where this cannot be used, right? I hope you got the point why I did that, let's say, modification there. I did the modification in the linear regression line or in the linear regression model over here and over here, up and bounds, right? So this is lower bound and this is upper bound. I've just clipped the upper bound and the lower bound within the boundary of the possible set of values, right? And the reason why I did that is because it was going out of bounds. It was going out. So that is the reason why I have just gave it a structure. And the structure looks like this. Now, when we actually do the mathematics or when we actually implement the solution, the actual function will be something similar to this, which looks like a sigmoid function. And the outcome of a sigmoid function is actually described in terms of natural logarithm. In mathematics, the outcome or the entities associated with the sigmoid function is related to the natural logarithm. So that is the reason, a place from where this word comes in picture. And that is the reason why the outcome or the entity which is produced by the sigmoid function or this function that we have created to do a classification problem, taking the reference of a regression use case, is known as a logit. And that's from where the name logistic regression comes from, right? So clearly and quite simply, the most common classification model to predict yes no type of cases is logistic sorry logistic regression. Okay, one example use case is diagnosis of a patient, right? So a patient goes to a hospital, the doctor has advised basis the symptoms which that patient has, that you can do so and so test, and then we are going to find out if you really have cancer. And if you have cancer within your body, is that cancer a benign cancer or a malignant cancer? So is that cancer going to spread, or is that cancer going to be located at one place so that we can quickly operate and we can get rid of it from your body, right? So that's one of the use cases where logistic regression is really useful. It is also used in other use cases like text classification and so on, right? But these are use cases, as you can clearly see. These are the use cases where you will find uh, things which are having a clear cut kind of a bifurcation. Or in other words, I can clearly say that a person, let's say a friend of mine, friend X, Mr. X, if he is unfortunately diagnosed with cancer in this case, either his cancer is going to be benign or it is going to be malignant. Although there is always a scope of mistakes which can happen during the identification phase. So let's say depending on in which center he has gone, the test may be X% accurate, right? So there is a probability that the test is not done in the right way and hence it is not identified whether, or let's say identification is not done in the correct manner. But either the cancer is going to be benign or it is going to be malignant. I can't say half portion of the cancer is actually benign or half is actually malignant. So both of them can't exist at the same place. So these are mutually exclusive events. These events are clearly mutually exclusive. If I have mutually exclusive events, that's where logistic regression works the best, right? That's where logistic regression works the best. Or in other words, the outcomes should be mutually exclusive, or I can also say the outcomes should be binary, right? The example that I have taken over here has a binary outcome. It is 0 and 1, yes or no. Okay, benign or malignant, whether it is going to rain in Mumbai or not. Although it is already raining, but if you try to see the number of values which are there in the target variable being a categorical variable, there is no particular order, so I cannot say it is an ordinal variable, right? So it is going to rain versus it is not going to rain, so there is no ascending or descending order over here, but clearly there are only two categories. So yes and no, that's the only thing which is possible over here, right? So in that kind of a case, logistic regression works best. Now what happens if there is a middle value, maybe kind of a thing? In that case also, logistic regression will practically work well. I'm not saying that it is not going to fit. I'm not saying that if I take a data set where there are three values, yes, no, maybe, and in that case, maybe are those cases which this kind of a model is not going to fit well. That's not the case. It will try its level best to fit, right? But there will be errors. There will be classification errors. And there are two common types of classification errors which we are going to see. Something which we have already seen earlier, if you remember when we were doing our statistics and probability refresher, we looked at something which is known as a classification report or a confusion matrix. And in the confusion matrix, we looked at two kinds of errors, which is type 1 error and type 2 error, right? We are again going to revise the statements or the formulas or the fundamentals from there, because uh, if you choose to believe it, that's one of the most important criterias or one of the most important checks which we usually do to find out whether our classification models, like logistic regression, when we use them on any kind of a data, is really valid or not. So the validity or the authenticity of the model is first of all determined by a classification report or using a confusion index, which is going to clearly tell us how good or how bad the model is, right? Now, taking this use case, the curve that we have got, right? The curve that we have got. Okay, so we are going to talk about logistic regression. So I'll just make this as a different section itself so that it becomes clear. In the meanwhile, maybe if any one of you has any questions. Okay. The model which is fit in this case is also called a sigmoid function. As I said, it is a sigmoid function, right? The sigmoid function, this function or its outcome, I mean the graphical representation of the function, takes a S shape, right? So if you notice the curve that I drew earlier, I drew a y-axis, I drew x-axis, and the function was something like this. So it represents an S, right? So if I ask my daughter to write an S, this is how she'll write. It's closer to an S. It's not a perfect S, right? But it is just like an S, as if that S is sleeping, right? So that's the reason why the sigmoid function is in some cases also known as an S curve. In other words, that's why this function is also called, okay, sigmoid curve or S curve, right? So these are interchangeable names. So if you are reading papers or if you're looking at blogs or other people's code and they are talking about S curve, it is the same thing, right? Now, sigmoid function, what is the mathematical importance of a sigmoid function? We are going to look at the function or the definition of the function as well, but let's try to answer one question. I believe Sarangs has one. Go ahead, Sarangs.
Bhavik, so I have a basic question. So in logistic regression, we are trying to classify something, right? So let's
Yeah.
say we are trying to classify something binary, 0 or 1. Okay. But when we are plotting it, right? And we are plotting it the sigmoid, right?
Mhm.
So how can we plot something that is only 0 and 1?
True. True. We cannot plot something which is really 0 and 1 because in that case, our graph will not even exist because 0 and 1 are simply 2 points, right?
Correct.
Or a set of 2 kinds of points. So what we are trying to do using a sigmoid function, as you will see from the formula, is that we are not trying to draw a function. We are trying to estimate a function. So sigmoid is a function, or you can say a method in math, by which we estimate using the epsilon value, right? And what I mean by this estimate is that, let's say this is my y-axis where I have that use case of 0 and 1, whether it is not going to rain or it is going to rain, right? And on the x-axis, I have the humidity. So the same earlier example. So rather than drawing a straight line or some kind of line which I cannot really draw because this is one set of points, this is one set of points, I'm just going to approximate. I'm just going to approximate a smooth function which is something like this, right? Which will be represented by epsilon e. We are going to look at this feature as well. Why or from where this e comes into picture is because of the natural logarithm. Now, we are simply going to estimate a curvature line which is something like this. And what we are going to say, we are going to create a decision boundary. So we are going to create a decision boundary which looks something like this. Why did I create a decision boundary? Is because this is something like the cutoff marks in an examination. So I'm saying that in our study group, there are 11 members. We have already done 102nd class this is. I'm going to take a quiz of all of you. And then I'll give you 20 questions, out of which if anybody answers more than 12 questions, that's a testimony the person has really learned something out of this initiative. So 12 is my cutoff. Anybody beyond 12 is pass. Anybody less than 12 fails. So that's what the objective of this cutoff value is going to be. Now, who decides this is entirely up to you. This is a subjective thing. The algorithm is not going to decide this for you. This is entirely up to you. How you are going to decide what is the cutoff is entirely up to you. You can select a cutoff of, let's say, 50%. You can select a cutoff of also, let's say, 75%. But basis the cutoff and looking at the outcome of the model, you are going to say anything above the value of the cutoff is more closer to one. Sense I will say that on that particular day it is going to rain, or if it is lesser than that cutoff value and it is closer to 0, I am going to say that it's not going to rain. Or in other words, if my predicted value is above the cutoff, I'll say it is more probable to rain, or if it is less than the cutoff, I'll say it is less probable to rain. This line here is also known as the decision surface. So to answer the question, right, I hope you got your answer. So to answer your question is, we are not fitting a line at all. We are approximating one function, right? We cannot fit a line. What I did by adjusting the corners and all those things, right? It was just a representation of how I can convert a linear regression line, which looks like a straight line, into a sigmoid function, which looks like this, right? By adjusting the curves, by adjusting the borders. If I adjust the borders, and I can do that. But if I have two categorical variables, 1 and 0, I cannot fit a straight line through it, right?
Got it, Bhaumik.
Yeah. Okay, so keeping that in mind, let's try to understand what is this sigmoid function. So clearly, I have a function. So now there is going to be some math, yeah? But I'll try to make this as simple or as easy as I can. So obviously, this is a machine learning problem, or this is a prediction kind of a problem. So obviously, and because this is a very, very simplistic kind of a prediction problem, we must attach some kind of a hypothesis behind it. In this case, if I go ahead with my use case, whether the cancer is benign or let's say malignant, or whether it is going to rain or not rain, right? Then I clearly have a hypothesis. And my hypothesis function, okay, my model's hypothesis function, let's say it is H of something, right? That H of something is either 1 or 0. And in my case, it is represented by a sigmoid function. So I'll write sigmoid of something. Now, I don't know what is H of something. I don't know what is sigmoid of something. I need to find out. So what I can find out, or how I can represent this, is that clearly I'll go back to linear regression, because from the name it seems logistic regression is kind of a technique which I have implemented out of the limitations of linear regression when it comes to applying linear regression into classification use case, which I could not do because, as of course, as we answered to Sarang's question as well, we cannot fit a straight line if I have two values, right? So the adaptation of linear regression is what has resulted into logistic regression, which we are trying to study. Hence, we will take the basic equation of a linear regression, which is equal to W is equal to, oh, no, sorry, maybe I'm going to represent it as Y is equal to, okay, theta x plus b, or let's say some weight W multiplied by my features x plus b, right? Where b is the intercept and W is the slope, right? Or I can also say B is the bias and W are the weights, right? This is what we have learned in the linear regression use case as well when we were looking into the regularization formats, region lasso. So B in this case is the intercept or the bias, which is the default value of Y if I don't consider any variables which are there in my data set. So the default value becomes B, so that's the bias, which will always be there. And then I have W, which is the slope or the weights. Now, if I want to convert this linear regression equation into a sigmoid function, then obviously my hypothesis or my hypothesis function is surrounding this x value. So I write h of x. So my simplistic mathematical representation is h of x on top of a sigmoid, which I'm going to apply for finding the value of y. And hence I write my general hypothesis as this. But this is not the same hypothesis which we learned in the hypothesis testing example. Hypothesis testing is a different case. This is a different case. This word hypothesis means the model or the structure of the model that we are trying to create to represent my use case or to represent the outcome of my question. So that's what this word hypothesis means over here. Please don't get confused with a null hypothesis or an alternate hypothesis. Although we can formulate, right? We can formulate one. We already did that when it came to linear regression. We can do that in case of classification problems as well. But it is not really necessary, because if we are already creating a model, there is no point of hypothesizing anything. We are not going to assume anything because we already have the data, right? It makes no sense that we are creating a null or an alternate hypothesis without looking at the data, because we already have the data with us. We can simply apply a model, we can simply apply a machine learning model, and we will find the answer anyways. How good or how bad it is a different question, but we will find the answer, right? So that's why this hypothesis is not that statistical hypothesis test. So there is no question of doing a null hypothesis or alternate hypothesis, although you can do. To understand the problem, you can do. To explain it to a person from business, you can do. But mathematically, we are not going to do that. So simply put, h of x is equal to sigmoid of y. Now, how do I find sigmoid of y? That's the question. The basic maths tells me that a sigmoid of any variable t, is given as 1 divided by, okay, 1 plus e to the power minus t. I'm just going to represent it like this. 1 by 1 plus e to the power minus of t. Now, why I'm doing this is because this is the natural logarithmic expression. If I take a natural log, okay, if I take a natural log of this value of t over a period of time for different values of t, then I can represent it in this format. Now, why did I take a natural log? I was talking about the sigmoid function because I need to do logistic regression. Why did I go over to natural log? Any property of a natural log which you know, which you may remember from school?
It has a range, a boundation.
Of what is the range?
I mean, if it is log to the base 10, it's always 0 to 1.
Yes, true. And that's the main punch over here. The reason why we used a logarithmic representation is because a natural logarithm always converts or limits any natural number within 0 and 1. You find the natural log of any number, okay, you find the natural log of any number which is going towards infinity, right? Let's say example, if I try to find the natural log, I'll represent it as ln because it is a natural log. So I'll say it is ln. So ln of a number which is going towards positive infinity, or it is an infinitely huge positive number, the natural log of this number tends closer to 1. So it tends closer to 1. While if I do a natural log of a number which is tending towards minus infinity, it tends towards 0. This is the property of a natural log or log base 10. And that's the reason why we have selected this, because we have to limit ourselves between that range of value 0 and 1. right? That's the reason why we have taken this sigmoid function in place, is because I need to limit my output within 0 to 1, because I have a binary classification problem. I can either get a value which is 0 or 1, or in my earlier example, or let's say terminology, I'm going to become as closer to 1 or as closer to 0. I can't be exact, because as obvious, we cannot fit a straight line, right? 0 and 1, we cannot fit a straight line. So that's why I'm going to approximate these, right? I hope it is clear until this point in time, right? So if it is clear until this point in time, let's quickly look at how this mathematical representation is actually helping us, right? How it helps us is that because we have limited our values, to this 0 and 1 range, I can now fit a logistic regression line with my data sets, which might look something like this. Let's say I'm going to again draw my X and Y axis, and I have two boundary conditions. I'm going to give those boundary conditions like this. I hope we are able to see them. So my boundary conditions are like these. Okay, so I can say this is 0, so it will not rain, and this is 1, it means it is going to rain. The moment I try and fit a logistic regression, which is using a natural log, okay, then it gives me a curve which is something like this. And if I am getting a curve which is something like this, the best possible thing I can do, as I already explained a little bit when I was explaining the earlier answer, is that I can take a threshold value. I can take a threshold value which is something like this. I have taken the threshold value basis my business understanding of the problem, or the understanding of the situation in which I am, or the problem statement that I'm trying to solve. Right? In other words, what I'm saying is, unless and until I am at least 70% confident that it is going to rain, I'm not going to say at all, or I'm not going to utter that word that tomorrow it is going to rain, because otherwise it might cause a panic for me, or maybe I don't have the resources to manage the outcome or the situation if it rains, right? Because maybe I don't have resources or infrastructure, or I have some kind of, let's say, business restrictions and so on. So I am only going to consider, if at all I need to take some actions for tomorrow for Mumbai, if it is going to rain, if the value is beyond the threshold, which for me, which I have really decided to be 0.7, that this becomes my decision surface. And if my decision surface or my threshold is greater than 0.7, the more it tends towards 1, this is the range where I'm going to say, yes, it is going to rain. So if my prediction falls within this range, I'm going to fit a model and I'm going to find the prediction. If that value comes in this range, then I'm going to say that yes, it is going to rain. How is that value going to come? It is going to come from the sigmoid function. How is that sigmoid function going to get executed? Is basis this formula that we have used. We have already defined a formula. We're just going to put the value of t. Right? What is going to be the value of t? The value of the feature. Now, if it comes below the threshold value, I'm going to say it is actually closer to 0. Although 0.6 is not really closer to 0. But if I get a value which is boundary condition like 0.69, I'm going to consider that it is not going to rain tomorrow. Now, this is a decision that you have to take basis the kind of business constraints you have in your setup. In some cases, this threshold value will be as less as, or will be as stringent as, let's say, 0.5. Right? So there will be cases where we are going to consider this threshold as 0.5. 50-50. If it is going beyond 0.5, then yes, it is going to rain. There is a probability of raining. So I'm simply going to say it is going to rain. Let's take some kind of, let's say, precautions. But what if people are on leave? What if there is a because of this pandemic, right? Many of my workers are on leave. Can I really organize something? If let's say, if imagine I'm from BMC or I'm from the municipality, can I really do any proactive measures at this time of the hour? If I have many people who have gone to their hometowns or their native places because of this outbreak, if I don't have the if I have such kind of restrictions in my environment, obviously I'll have to adjust this value. There is nothing I can do, right? I am actually limited by the resources which I have to adjust this threshold value. So accordingly, I'll change my understanding of the model. Okay, but not the model. So this is a very common mistake which people do, is that this threshold value they assume to be part of the model. This is not. This is not part of the model, right? The model is this. The model is this line. This is my sigmoid curve. The sigmoid curve that I have got out of solving this equation, right? I have solved this equation. I have got the answer. Now the threshold that I am selecting, which is creating my decision surface, is entirely based on my business understanding. It is my call. As a data scientist, it is my call. I will sit with my business people, with my product owner, with my managers, with my management, with my, let's say, commercial teams. If let's say I'm talking about a business kind of a scenario, so I'll sit with my business people in that case. Else I'll sit with my doctors. I'm going to sit with the biotechnologists and so on. And then I'm going to decide a value. If let's say this example was from a healthcare domain and I'm trying to decide that benign or malignant kind of thing, right? So this is my choice. This has nothing to do with the model. The model has already given me this. This is the outcome of the model. The model will stop over here. But now a bigger question is, it's all fine. I have understood this thing quite well. This is very good. I have X, I have Y. You have given me the value. Now you tell me one thing. Is this really going to be a real life use case that I have only one variable to consider? We have done 10 models when we did this linear regression modeling. And we concentrated only on multiple linear regression. Why is that the case? Because that is reality. In reality, there wouldn't be one feature affecting the rains in Mumbai. There will be many features affecting the rains in Mumbai or its effects. I'm not only talking about, let's say, the fact that whether there is XYZ percentage of humidity, that itself is a testimony whether it is going to rain, right? I may need to consider features like, if it rains, then what, right? Or maybe there are certain things which are not entirely scientifically related to being a rain, but they are most uh, contributive towards the fact that whenever they happen, rain happens, right? So there will be multiple features. Now, in my case, this was easy. I did, or I made my life simple by taking X and Y. How do I represent this in the form of multiple X's and a single Y? So similar to that case of linear regression, which is otherwise known as multiple linear regression, where this W was actually a vector of weights. Okay, it's a vector of weights, and this X is actually a matrix of my features. So I have n number of features and m number of weights. So I'm doing an m cross n. So this is an m multiplied by one matrix, right? And this is an n multiplied by, let's say, O. Okay, so I have n number of rows, m number of columns, where m should be equal to n, right? So, or maybe I'm just going to clear the confusion. Let me just remove this. So this should be m cross n matrix. So this is my singular matrix of weights. This is my multidimensional matrix of X, and this is my singular matrix of the weights W. I have to do this multiplication operation over here, find out this variable. I can try to nullify this variable to find out the beta or the intercept or the bias, and hence I get the multiple linear regression equation. This is exactly what we have done until the last day using those 10 models. Now we have to employ something similar when it comes to logistic regression. What is that? How is that done? How am I going to code this up is something which we are going to look from the next session. If you have any questions until this point in time, please do let me know. If you have any doubts, please do let me know. I'll share a few materials maybe so that you can read about it. But please don't take it too seriously. We have not even scratched the surface. We have just understood that there is a concept called logistic regression, which we have borrowed from the concept of linear regression. We have tweaked that linear regression best fit line somehow, even if we cannot fit a straight line between 2 points. And we try to visualize it as a sigmoid function, or we try to mathematically put it as a sigmoid function, which is ultimately using a natural logarithm. Why? Because I have to limit my values within the set 1 and 0. Why? Because I'm trying to solve a binary classification problem where the outcome can either be yes or no, true or false, 0 and 1. Right? That's all we have learned right now. You can take a pause over here. Let's continue tomorrow. If you have any questions, please do let me know. Yeah. Thank you, friends.
Thanks, Mami. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.